Hollywood did many things to help the war effort in the 1940s. One of the main things that they did to help was donating things and raising lots of money. Many actors, actresses, and entertainers donated their time during the war. Besides making movies filled with American propaganda, they would perform live for others. For about 4 years, many entertainers would go to theaters near areas of combat and perform for the soldiers in the war. They would travel the country and perform for soldiers, Marines, and airmen. They even went to hospitals and onto ships to meet the soldiers. Actors and actresses spent a lot of their time trying to boost everyone's morale and raise the war effort. Many actors and actresses also spent their time raising money to fund the war. The most basic method was to convince the public to buy war bonds. Hollywood actors traveled all over the country on tours to convince the American citizens to buy bonds and fund the war. This Hollywood tour scheme was called the Hollywood Victory Caravan. Many stars like Dorothy Lamour, James Cagney, and Cary Grant helped raise money for World War II. Millions of dollars was raised for the war effort. Hollywood stars and staff also donated their time and effort to the Hollywood Canteen. This canteen was open during the war for 3 years to soldiers in the area. Thousands of soldiers would come to the canteen to meet the stars and get a bite to eat. Many people from Hollywood would volunteer in shifts to serve the soldiers and entertain them. They donated lots of food like cake, milk, and coffee to the military men. Stars who volunteered at the canteen also donated their salaries to help even more. Hollywood made a great effort in supporting the war.
Hello, my name's James Wagenseller, and today I'm going to be talking about the actors in World War II. So the first actor is Jimmy Stewart. He was born in Indiana on May 10th, 1908, and he had a normal childhood, and then he moved to Hollywood, and he was an actor for about 7 years before the war. Before the war, he had about 3 major acting roles, and his first one was a comedy, which was named You Can't Take It With You in 1938. He got nominated for an Academy Award from this film. The next role was a comedy named Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in 1939. And then in 1940, he won an Academy Award for Best Actor in the movie The Philadelphia Story. Jimmy already had a private pilot's license before the war, and when the war started, he enlisted in the Army Air Corps. He fought in Europe and got to the rank of colonel by flying the B-24 Liberator bombers. He would stay in the reserves after the war until he got to the rank Brigadier General or 1-star General. After the war, he went back to acting and had many, many major roles, and him joining the Army definitely made more people join after him because he was one of the most famous actors in Hollywood at this time. Then my second person is David Niven. He's actually in English. He's from England. He was born March 1st, 1910 in London, England, and he joined the Royal Army after college. He went to a British military school. In 1933, he retired from the Army because he found a new love in acting and he didn't like the peacetime Army. He did not enjoy it. He moved to New York and then soon after moved to Hollywood. He did many small films in Hollywood before he got a major role in the movie Dodsworth in 1936. When World War II broke out, he rejoined the Royal Army. He joined as a lieutenant, and during his time in World War II, he was in England the majority of it, and he made a movie called Spitfire, and this was a very famous movie. It explained the Spitfire and how it was one of the greatest aircrafts ever to be created. And after that, he retired when his unit demobilized, and then he went back to acting, won 2 Golden Globes and 1 Academy Award, and just like Jimmy Stewart, definitely encourage many, many young men to get out there and go fight.
Some iconic movies made during World War II were The Great Dictator, made in 1940, A Yank in RFA, made in 1941, That Night in Rio, created in 1941, and The Manhunt, designed in 1941. The first movie was The Great Dictator, which was about a Jewish barber who spent several years in a military clinic suffering from his injuries after serving in the Great War. Oblivious of the advent of the fascist tyrant Adi Heikel and his anti-Semitic laws, returning to his sleepy neighborhood, the barber, who looks a lot like Hinkle, is shocked by the drastic changes and careless meets a pretty girl and her neighbors in rebellion. The next movie, called The Great Dictator, was a hit with the public, and it became Chaplin's most financially lucrative film. It has been hailed by many critics as a historical influence film and one of the best comedies ever made. It's an important piece of humor. The next movie, A Yank in the RFA, is about Henry King's combat romance lead, American pilot Tim Baker, who meets Her Majesty Royal Air Force in the United Kingdom on the spur of the moment. He was not English, but he was an aphilic ex-girlfriend who he wanted to impress. When Tim is faced with the brutal realities of World War II, he reconsiders his former motives and realizes the gravity of the situation. The next movie, which is called The Night in Rio, stars Larry Martin, who amuses fans with his highly impressive impersonations of airline czar Baron Manuel Duret in this musical. Duret and his wife are very impressed, and they pay a visit to Larry in his performance. They are so impressed that they recruit him to intimidate Duret in order to save their airline and keep their rivals at bay. Larry, on the other hand, is attracted to Duret's wife, Baron Celia, much to his girlfriend's dismay. The last movie, called The Manhunt, whose main protagonist is Captain Thorndyke, who is a famous big game hunter, is hunting in the Bavarian forest when he comes across Adolf Hitler's holiday home. He is captured and battered before fleeing and taking refuge on a steamship back to England. Enticed by the thought of murdering the tyrant, Thorndyke's identity is compromised abroad by Miss Jones, a smooth-talking con artist. Gestapo's officers are crawling London in pursuit of the would-be killer, which both men quickly learn. These are the four of the most iconic movies during World War II that influenced the times and were evident in what was happening currently in the world.
Cartoons were a major piece in the war effort, as they acted as a strong source of propaganda. American cartoons were mainly made to shun Nazi ideas while making the Americans heroes. Cartoons made by Disney were heavy hitters during the time, as famous actors such as Donald Duck served as main characters. Other characters such as Bugs Bunny, Popeyes the Sailor Man, and Willie and Joe appeared in many war cartoons. Along with creating a better view of America, these cartoons also helped out on the home front. They encouraged the average citizen to do their part as an American and participate in however they could in the war. These cartoons also provided America with the necessary funds required to maintain an army. War bonds were encouraged, and many people were captured by the patriotic feel they got from these films. Cartoons such as the All Together cartoon featured Snow White's 7 dwarves and encouraged the public to buy war bonds. They made the offer tempting by adding the fact that you will make a profit and also be able to help your country. Donald Duck was one of the main actors in these Disney cartoons, as he played his role in 6 different cartoons, all bashing the Nazis and promoting the American cause.
Well, now what are you going to do? Spend for the Axis or save for taxes? Just remember, every dollar you spend for something you don't need is a dollar spent to help the Axis. That's right. And every dollar you sock away for taxes is another dollar to sock the Axis. For it is your taxes, my taxes, our taxes that run the factories.